So today we're going to look at Kievan Rus, or early Russia. One of the things, or a couple of goals that we're going to have for today, just understand the rise of Russia, how it all began, and then we'll also take a look at the Mongol invasion and how that affects Russia, and then the development of Moscow. So if we look at Russian culture, we're really talking about a blending of Slavic, Greek, and even some Viking traditions. And this is all going to date back to this period in which we're taking a look at. So you should have labeled your map already. We've got Novgorod up here, we've got Kiev down here, the Dnieper River, which we've already labeled, and and then we have Moscow out here. So these are some of the places that we're going to be taking a look at today. And let's jump right into the birth of Russia. So our story really begins in about the 800s, when you've got a number of Viking traders that are coming in and trading with this region. Now, granted, they're not all about trade. They're going to be about conquering and pillaging and this sort of thing as well. But eventually, the Slavs invite a guy by the name of Rurik in to be king. And this is a Viking chief, and they're going to invite him to be king. So you might wonder, why would they do that? Well, they wanted good relations with him. They wanted to be able to trade with him. So they start doing this. And in 862, the city of Novgorod is founded. So again, we're up here in northern Russia. And this becomes really the first important city for Russia. So as some time goes on, they realize this isn't the ideal for a capital. And they're going to move their capital to Kiev, which is further down. Okay, and this is going to be done in the 900s by a guy by the name of Oleg. And really, the move is done mostly for trade. This is going to bring them closer to the Black Sea, closer to Constantinople. And Kiev starts out as a small state ruled by a prince. And then it's going to continue to grow and develop. Now you still have Vikings that are interacting; they're intermarrying with these Slavic people. So you have this blending taking place. But now that the capital is in Kiev, you're going to have another sort of blending taking place. So after Oleg, you've got a few other people I'm going to mention. I won't worry too much about their names, but I'll give you the story. So Igor is the son of Rurik, but he's too young. To rule. So a woman by the name of Olga is going to rule in 954. Now, while ruling, she heads down and visits Constantinople, and of course she's going to then convert to Christianity. So although Olga is the first to convert to Christianity, it's going to be her grandson that is a lot more influential for Russia. And this is going to be the guy that you want to know, and that is Vladimir. This is Olga's grandson, and he is going to send out teams throughout the world to discover what sort of religion he wanted Russia to follow. So he sends people to Western Europe, and they learn about Roman Catholicism. He sends people into the Muslim world and learn about that. And he also sends people to the Byzantine world. So this is where they are really going to kind of latch on to, and he decides to convert to Eastern Orthodox Christianity. All right, we may talk about some of those reasons in class tomorrow, but ultimately he's going to convert, and it's kind of a political move too. They're closest to Constantinople, so this is going to help with trade. And he imports a bunch of teachers from the Byzantine Empire into Russia to learn about Christianity so that they could start teaching it properly. So here we have Vladimir being baptized. This is actually a painting in St. Vladimir's Cathedral in Kiev, which I've actually been to. Maybe I'll show you a picture tomorrow in class. Okay, so Vladimir has his religious importance, but he's also going to expand the state of Kievan Russia into Poland and north to the Baltic. All right, sorry, got ahead of myself a little bit. So here then are the people of Kiev being converted and being baptized in the Dnieper River. Now, Vladimir doesn't give these people much of a choice, so they're kind of forced to convert, but this is really how Christianity takes off in Russia. Okay, and Vladimir is going to have a son named Yaroslav the Wise, and here he is, and we're going to tell you about how wise he was. Okay, one of the reasons why he is so wise is that he actually has his daughters marry off into Western Europe, into some Germanic princes, which is going to help with relations, help with trade, and this is going to help with their economy. So this helps out a decent amount. He also creates a legal code, so this kind of also stemming off the idea from the Byzantine Empire and what Justinian had done. This is also going to help with commercial culture and in terms of property law. So again, some of the things that we looked at in the Byzantine Empire are going to be pretty similar there. He also has libraries built in Kiev, so the focus on education starts to take off. So these are all the good things. However, he does do one thing that doesn't make him so wise, and he does have some sons, and to be a nice guy, he's going to divide his country or really Russia amongst his sons. Now, it seems like a nice thing to do, but back then, and we'll look at a number of times when this happens, when a leader is going to divide his empire or his kingdom up amongst his kids, and it's not going to end well. So he divides them. He divides the country amongst his kids, and then this is really going to tear apart Russia in that they're going to start fighting each other. So that's not going to be good. And then you've got a couple of other problems that are going to start to take place after Yaroslav rules. One of the problems is going to be that the Crusades are going on. We've mentioned them. Now we've started researching them. But this is certainly going to take Constantinople away from trading with Russia. So that's going to hurt them, financially. So they start to lose that contact. But then they also have a newer, bigger threat, and that would be in the case of the Mongols. Okay, so in the beginning of the 1200s, the Mongols start invading Russia. And basically between 1237 and 1240, they demolish Kiev. So they take it over, and they're basically going to rule over Russia for the next 240 years. Now, one of the interesting things is that the church survives through this fiasco. It's actually quite interesting. The church kind of acts as a mediator between the Russians and the Mongols during this period. Now, also the Russians could continue to live like they were before, so the Mongols practiced this idea of toleration, something that we've talked about before with the Persians. They continued to follow their customs, and overall things were pretty good. They did have to pay tribute and give obedience to the Mongols, so this is going to be something that they had to do throughout that 240-year rule over them. And the tribute is pretty extensive. So you paid this, or you were going to get killed, or your city would get burnt down, or things like this. So overall, it's not that great. Okay, now during this, a couple of interesting people are going to come out of this in that they're Russian, but they're going to kind of side with the Mongols. One example is this guy, Alexander Nevsky. I wouldn't worry about his name. Don't worry about it. Just more about the idea. So he's a prince in Novgorod, but he's advising all the Russians to cooperate with the Mongols. So he kind of helps put down Russian revolts that are taking place. But at the same time, he's going to get kind of paid for this, in that the Mongols are going to, take care of him and keep his pockets full, in terms of money. So one of the big problems with this sort of action is that the Mongols are really kept away from Western Europe. Now, we haven't talked about Western Europe, what's going to happen to them after the Middle Ages and after the plague. They're going to recover from it, but the Russians are going to be kept isolated, and this is going to be what really sets them back and sets them behind Western Europe as Western Europe starts to take off. All right, so then Ivan the First, he is kind of like what Nevsky did in that he was a tax collector. He helped the Mongols. His nickname's the Grand Prince, but a lot of people actually called him Grand Moneybags because he taxed all these people and got pretty rich from it. He also, though, is going to be the Prince of Moscow. So this is going to be the time when Moscow starts to take off. So he's got a son. I don't know, things don't go that great. Not really worth mentioning. But then we have Ivan the Third. So with Ivan the Third, he is considered Ivan the Great. Okay, and what makes him great is that he actually challenged the Mongols. And in 1480, they broke away from the Mongols. Basically, told the people to refuse to pay the Mongols back. There certainly was some issues with this between the Mongols, but ultimately the Mongols retreated and they were out. So 1480 marks the end of the Mongol rule over the Russians. So now they're going to be able to try to move forward. However, you're going to have a guy by the name of Ivan IV, who is Ivan the Terrible, but he's going to be for another discussion. All right, so hopefully you understood the birth of Russia. We've got Kiev being the capital, and then eventually the rise of Moscow under the Ivans.